Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, midgets of all girths, welcome to Kerbal Explosive Colonization. So today, for a bit of a change, we are actually going to start at Juna. And what I've been doing here is basically I've been getting it ready to run an orbital station. And because I'm a bit lazy, I reused the launcher that I made in orbit of Minmus for the ISS. However, as you can see, I did the Kerbal thing and just added more boosters because, again, I am fairly lazy. Now, the problem I had with this was that I actually just copied the booster 3 times on each side and didn't do much else with it, which led to having no fuel flow. So it's not actually staged correctly, and I had to work through all of the different fuels to try and get it to drain evenly, as you can see here. And at the same time, for those of you that actually know what they're doing, unlike me, you will notice that I am launching into a retrograde orbit, because I was upside down when I was looking at this, and yeah, so I launched it backwards, staged it wrong, but we got there in the end, and I overestimated because it was launching from the surface of a planet. So here we go, we managed to get everything looped around, all of the fuel done correctly, and this will get us essentially an instant manufacture. Well, not instant manufacture, it took a while to build this, but it will give us an instant space station in one shot with only a little bit of modification required. And because of the way that DSCV works for these station parts, they all have modifiable criteria, and all the fuel containers are modifiable, so you can repurpose this whichever way you want. You just need equipment to change the way that things work. And this is part of the advantage of these boosters, is that although I didn't intend this for all of them, and I didn't intend this when I first made it, but if I launch to orbit and manage to retain the boosters, I can recycle them into equipment. So, although I'm going to stage some of them, I'm going to keep the final 2 and stage it into equipment so that we have some things to reconfigure for what we need. So we're just going through the stages. As you can see here, I'm just pumping fuel about and trying to keep the fuel and have a sensible way of actually getting this into orbit. This is all at 4 times time acceleration in post-production. So we stage all 4 of the boosters, redo our fuel containment, check everything's working and everything's set up to drain correctly. And then after a little while, because I basically shot deliberately too high, and what I ended up doing, although I haven't showed it here, is I ended up going all the way out to Juna's moon and slingshotting back towards the planet. It made it easier to circularize going prograde around the planet. And here I just shoot off 2 of the boosters and then kill their engines, just so that they're in orbit and I can do something with them. I hadn't exactly planned what at this stage. But we still have plenty of fuel in those final 2 boosters, so we're keeping it there. It'll be good for refueling things that need to go down to the surface. And we're just getting the solar truss up and set to the side so that those solar panels can rotate freely. This truss, most of this ship in fact, is DSCV mod with probe controls from the KNES mod. 2 of my favourite mods at the moment for doing different things. But yeah, we just start moving some of the station parts about and just set up, not looking like the ISS this time. The original idea was to make something that emulated the ISS. This time I am just using this base. It has a few different uses, so it was quick enough. And then because I'm bored and this happens every once in a while, I decided to land one of the boosters. And when I say land, I mean our standard explosion. So now we're out at the moon, and this is the actual ISS, and I'm just collecting some of the science. I'm trying to unlock the end of the tech tree, so we are just using this to get there. We're generating a lot of science here at the moment. Almost everything that is being researched, all the data is being transmitted back to either the Heaven 1 or to the ISS for processing. The reason I'm doing it in 2 different places is so that I can process multiple amounts and get it unlocked faster. So once we've grabbed all of our science, we head back to Kerbal for another launch. Now, people that have seen this a few times will recognise my SSTO. However, this time I have taken the Estonian pod, which was created by Angel125 on the forums, and I've reconfigured it as basically a Mooner transfer vehicle. This particular version, with a little bit of the stick-on nose, has extra life support for getting out to Minmus and for doing a bit here and there. And we've just created this launch vehicle out of the old SSTO and sort of beefed up the amount of fuel it has. So just because every once in a while I like trying this, although it goes horribly wrong every time, we let it just fall back into the atmosphere as opposed to doing a directed return. Kick out our chutes just in case we lose any sort of control on the way down, which we do, but it manages to stay prograde. And then we launch our chutes at high altitude, kick out the brakes. We still have a tiny amount of fuel to make the landing a little bit softer, deploying the gears on the way down. And hey, proper landing for once. So straight away we jump back up to the Estonian, use a mech jib, kick yourself out to the moon. I use mech jib an awful lot just because I can't be bothered messing about with some of the things, and it's so much easier to create manoeuvre nodes that are 2 or 3 warps ahead. You don't have to spend as much time messing about with it. So here we are just arriving at the station. Standard docking manoeuvre using mech jib. Again, sometimes I prefer it. Sometimes I do it manually. It changes. But yep, so we grab our Kerbal, and on board this Estonian already we have 2 tourists that wanted to go out to the moon and do a flyby in orbit, so we've already passed that particular mission. And there is another mission that I have, which is to go out to Minmus and intercept or bring back one of our little pilots that is out there. So we set up the manoeuvre node and we head out to Minmus. Nice and simple burn and transfer, and this again is why I like MechJib for these things, because you can use the interplanetary transfer to transfer between the 2 moons, and it makes it so much easier. So here's a bit of a problem I have when I'm trying to manoeuvre about using fuel, using RCS. It kicks off my manoeuvre node. So we kill that, we go for a standard transfer, and then as we're coming in, I'm setting up to go for the orbital insertion to grab our little planet, our little Kerbals that are here. And I notice how close I've made it, but we skim and we're okay. So I start looking around for our little Kerbals, and this is at the moment where I realise that I can't see them. And essentially what's happened is I've accepted the mission, and then when I've loaded up the next save, I've accepted as I've quit and it's not resaved it. So the next time I played it, it wasn't there. So I tried to complete a mission that I hadn't taken, and by this time it's disappeared. So I decided to go and land next to the Infinity, which was all fueling up several episodes ago. And I decide that at this point I'm thinking I'm going to get this ready and kick it out to Dres. I'm just going to bring back some of the crew from it. However, I come up with the idea of just bringing it back to Kerbal, specifically because this uses one part from the MRS mod, I believe it is. Yeah, Mobile Rocket Systems. And I want to get this gone, so I'm going to recycle this. There's one other thing that uses something from the MRS mod, which is the Hammerhead, which is currently orbiting Eve. And it does have crew on board, so I don't want to take that mod out of the game until that's going on. So this is why I come up with this idea. But we grab all of the extra Kerbals, and just bring our little lander straight back. And I'm just doing these one at a time because having so many things going on, you can forget things, or time warp can cause issues. So just one at a time, we bring the Estonian back first, skimming the atmosphere to bring our apoapsis down. And then on a second loop round, we can actually aim our landing and take it fairly close to the KSC, obviously trying to gain back as much money as possible, now that money is a very severe concern for launching anything from Kerbal. So there we go, just using our trajectories mod to try and pinpoint a landing area, but so far I cannot get trajectories to work properly. I still need more fine tuning. I used to have it fairly good, but since then it's been a bit of an issue, and I notice I'm falling short, so I try and punt back up into the atmosphere. But after coming through the atmosphere a little bit more, I noticed that we are still very, very short. And then, as keeps happening with this Estonian, we get, as we're going through transonic, it flips upside down. I think the centre of mass is too high in the main module pod, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But every time we pass through transonic, we flip forward. Luckily it's survivable, but we go landing on the prettiest landing legs in the game now. And now I have a small problem, and this is all at original speed. The problem I am having, which I am soon to regret, is that I have two tourists and they won't go away. They are just sat in the briefing room, they are annoying everybody, they are causing mess, and they won't ever do the dishes. So it's time for these little gets to go. So somebody comes up with an idea, in memory of Jeb, of sending them in a rocket very fast in a vertical direction. So that's how this is created. Launch escape system into the air, some more rockets to go a little bit higher. And then some more rockets to send them back down to the ground and give them the hint that they are no longer welcome in the KSC. This is how we treat space tourists. And yes, we killed them, we killed them! And it was that enjoyable that I actually just reloaded and did it again. So, 4 times time acceleration, boom bang. Nice and simple. Now shortly after this I was told by Angel that he had an idea for converting tourists into something else, and the regret kicked in. But, oh well, these things happen. We kill people by accident every day. At least I do. Or the voices tell me to. So after a little manoeuvring node for our ship heading to Eve, we have another launch. Fairly expensive one this time. At least expensive these days. But we're kicking out into orbit and we're launching the little module extension for the ISS up at the moon. And at the same time, I also need to grab somebody that is stranded in orbit. So I decide to send the module up there with our little greenhouse section and a rocket building section. And that's 2 birds with 1 stone. So now we just have this little transfer section which I've built to send it all the way out to the moon. And unfortunately it's me, so I'm overly aggressive when I'm actually trying to intercept the ISS at the moon. And instead of waiting and humming about and stuff like this, I make the horrible mistake of trying to aggressively burn into it. And I run out of fuel. So we disconnect the drive section and go for using the RCS. However, the drive section has enough solar panels to keep this thing running, whereas it doesn't any other way. It does have enough battery to last for a while. And we do manage to get an interception there, but we realise that we're going to sail straight past. So we take our little Estonian on board the ISS and send this out to actually grab onto our mod as it sails past. And at the same time it'll have solar panels that can help charge this up, because it started to run out of battery there and I lost the ability to use RCS. I think it's because I kept the greenhouse module on, because this does have 2 little solar panels, but I'm not sure, that might not have been it. But we get all docked there, manually for a change. Yeah, although I use MechJib an awful lot, manual docking still is a required skill, and MechJib is not a cure for everything. You still need to know how to do most of the things. I'm fairly sloppy at them, so I use it an awful lot, but you still need to be able to guarantee that it's not going to send them wrong. As anybody's seen before, I've had many crashes caused by MechJib. But we have a little strange issue where as I'm docking it, it doesn't engage and just bounces off the station. So we have to use an awful lot of the RCS to try and get back down to the station. I don't know what caused that. It went to align, and instead of clicking and aligning and docking, it rocketed it off. Luckily I had the RCS. But while the battery's ticking down, we still managed to get it docked. And there we go, we have a new module. So we just bring the Estonian back to dock it. And that's our ISS all ready to go and all lined up. So we can actually start building things now on the ISS. Now, I'm not intended on building anything big. This doesn't have the rocket storage capacity for anything big. But for the moment, it'll be able to build little lander ships and something to go to the surface. So now, a lot of time has passed and we have gotten enough science. As you can see there, I'm over 20,000 science. So I want to unlock these 2 top right nodules on the tech node, on the tech tree. I couldn't think of it there. And this is basically the last of our main drives. Now at the same time as this, I have also reinstalled the Alcubierre drive. Because I've had a bit of a plan for it, and the far future technology wasn't everything I was hoping for. It is brilliant, it's fantastic, but it lacks high mass transfer, and a lot of my ships are very big, so the Alcubierre has a good niche that I need it for. And on that subject, we are back up to Lathe, and we have finished building something. So this is a little launcher that I created to shoot an entire ship up into orbit. I have a nice little drone ship, and we're doing a very vertical style launch because of how heavy and unstable this thing was. Again, I can't really test things because I don't have the money to launch anything, so these things are being built with a bit of redundancy and I'm launching them fairly safe. But here we have a lovely little ship with an Alcubierre drive. I've called this the Event Horizon because it's my first main test of this. I did have one a while back, but there's been so many videos I can't even remember if this was in one of my previous playthroughs. But either way, we've got this into orbit and we set it up and just leave it there collecting exotic matter, I think it has to create, something along those lines. I can't see it on my screen at the moment. So while it's doing that, we jump back towards Minmus and we decide to bring the Infinity? I think this is the Infinity. I've forgotten the name of some of my ships now. But yeah, we decide to bring this back to Kerbal, and I decide to just sack it off and rank the thing straight into the surface. So we go for a very aggressive burn, which is basically throwing this into orbit out of the solar system and then burning towards the centre of Minmus to curve my orbit all the way around, so that I have a very fast transit back to Kerbal, and I believe the transit is actually less than 2 hours. Now the main reason for this is that my 2 little people on board, because of running out of electricity because of some sort of issue, have both turned into tourists or refusing to work, so I need to get this sorted quickly. So I hammer this back to Kerbal as fast as possible. And then I'm trying to land close enough to recover some parts. But after a while I realised that that's not going to be possible. So we just slap it into pure retrograde and just try and soften the landing as much as possible. But as I'm coming through the atmosphere, I start to realise that that's not going to work. I don't have the power to slow this thing down. I'm still picking up speed, and I start to lose sort of rollability, and yeah, it goes sideways. So we set up to detach our little escape module. We have both of our Kerbals in the front section, and as we get close enough and roll sideways, I decouple. Out comes a parachute, and we watch the end of one of our longest serving ships with nothing left of it at all. So back out to Lathe. Now it's been a little bit of a while, we're having a bit of a transfer, and we are ready for another ship. Now this ship is intended as a life support ferry, but also a bit of a tug for some of the other ships that I'm designing, just to get them out to different planets and things. So it has a good thrust to weight ratio for hauling other craft, and a basic ability to create life support using the mole modules. There's two big mole modules that can be set up as labs, and here's one of the station parts expansion radio, I think. But I wanted a nice big, yeah, just beautiful part. So I thought I'd put this on it, and it's spinning fast because again we're in 4 times time acceleration, but I thought that looked really nice, so I had to put it on something, and I've been dying to do it for ages. But now that we've got that in orbit, the other section of this is that we're creating another craft to land on Val. And this is why I need a life support transfer, is I'm going to be mining off of Val, and I want to create the ability to launch ships from Val, possibly from orbit, but I need to launch bigger ships. So because of the issues that I was having with launching things into orbit, transferring things into orbit around about Lathe, that took a while to think of that. I decided to set up in Val and create a little bit of a base out there that is just pure mining to throw things into orbit that can be caught in orbit and then turned into ships, and that can be my little launcher, which is still close into dual, so it'll give me a good delta V kick if I'm launching them out further. This is the plan. So I launch a lovely little ship, intercept out to Val, and it's quite an easy transfer around about dual. I've never actually done this before. I've sent probes here, but not many of them, and most of them got deleted actually because of updated mods. So this has 2 probes on board, and we head out to Val. As you can see, nice and quickly, less than 2 days worth of transfer. And I just circularise the orbit, and then just, my idea is to drop one of the probes and send it in a completely polar orbit. However, once I go on board, I realised that this thing doesn't actually have any xenon, because there wasn't any in my station when I built this lander. So we decided just to do a little bit of orbiting and scanning of everything, and then pick a rough landing spot that is fairly flat, and I completely forget to check for ore. Luckily we actually managed to find a section that did have ore, but I couldn't believe my luck on that. But we find a roughly flat section, and the other part of this is I put it fairly close to a lot of different biomes so that I can gather a fair bit of science if I send a rover here or create a rover here. But we're using these new engines from the DSEV mod, thanks again Angel. These are big nuclear engines, they actually have a generator on board, although I'm not using that. But they do have a bit of a problem where you get status hits if you use them around about other ships, or if you use them on Kerbal, because they're heavy duty nuclear engines. So yeah, we lose one because this is explosive colonisation, but these can only be used in certain places, so I used these as little boosters, which I thought was a great idea, not to toot my own horn. But then on to the finale. So my lovely finale is we have charged up the exotic matter in the event horizon. Now this is completely unmanned, and the reason for this is I'm I've seen the film Event Horizon. I don't want anybody to die. But also because I couldn't be bothered sending the Kerbals up, and I didn't know if this was going to work, because I've used the Alcubierre drive once or twice, but I've never managed to make it work properly. So essentially what you have to do is you have to pick your 2 points and then work out a place around about the sun that will give you the delta V change, because this doesn't change your velocity. So if you're, for instance, if you're orbiting at Joule and you transfer down to Moho, you're still going to have Joule's orbital velocity, so you're going to go shooting backwards out of Moho's orbit. So I pick a rough spot around the orbit, and what I've sort of found is if you target the planet, change it to target mode and try and get your velocity as close to 0, you want to get somewhere between the tangent of the angles of the two planets. It's really complex, but yeah, I managed to figure out what I'm doing roughly, and then after a fair bit of trial and error, I head up to Kerbal with a ship, and because of the throttle I head straight past Kerbal and then turn around and redo this and go back and forward a little bit until I get close enough. And once you're in the sphere of influence of Kerbal, the trick is you just head straight down. That'll get you to Kerbal. But I sort of mess about with trying to get in the right side of it so that my orbit is the correct way around Kerbal once I stop, because I've reduced my velocity to about 2000 meters per second, which is roughly orbital. And there we go. When we shut it down, that's the orbit I'm left with. So instead of messing about any further with the actual Alcubierre drive, because I could have fine-tuned this with this, I just switched back to my nuclear drive from Wild Blue Industries, and there we have it. We are orbiting. And that was actually about, including the time spent at the sun, it was about 2 weeks of transfer time between Joule and Kerbal, which is brilliant. 14 days of transfer time. I don't even think it was that much, but there we go. With a few burns we get ourselves back down to a nice low orbit. As you can see there, I'm messing about with the circular eyes tool, so I just bring down my orbit low enough and then hit circular eyes to set up maneuver nodes and do it all itself. And that is exactly where I've left it. We now have an Alcubierre capable ship in orbit of Kerbal that was built in orbit of Joule or Lathe. So that should be interesting. So thanks for watching. If you like this, make comments. It's always nice to see, and I shall see you next time. Bye.